Well, I might kick off, like, for those people who saw the previous presenter talking about sustainability, you can actually change my topic and talk about his topic almost in exactly the same way. I tend to think the issues that we're talking about are interchangeable. So what I'm going to cover with you guys today is, like, people talk about lean or continuous improvement, and depending on who you talk to, people will, the general feeling is it could, how many people actually sustain it? So how many organisations will sustain this going forward? It does come down to a little bit of what you consider is success, about whether you see that, whether it was like a minor change or improvement in the business, or you've basically gone like the full Toyota. But the general consensus is not many people actually are able to sustain it. So, I mean, this means that, if I was to work with you, 5 years later, come back, I would see a structured approach to improving. So what I'm going to talk about today is, what do I see as the big pitfalls? Now, this is the number one reason, or number two reason, if you want to say, is a conversation you can have over a beer, virtually. Like, as to what actually drives, it's a bit of a chicken and egg kind of relationship. But what I definitely see in my experience is the number one pitfall is leadership. So if I go into an organisation and at the beginning and I'm not hearing from the managing director or the owner of the business, and they are talking quite clearly about this is what we're going to do, and they don't lend and support it, then I'm pretty confident they are not going to sustain it. So and I should say, one of the pitfalls isn't the guys in the shop floor don't know what to do. That is never a pitfall. I always see it's got to be led at the top. But as I said, and talking about like the sustainability discussion before, it's the same thing. You're not going to run a business that meets those sustainability programs if it's not led from above. And that kind of leads me to the second point being, and like I said, it's chicken and the egg kind of relationship, is places that I go into that there's not a clear linkage between what we're doing by lean to it's going to ultimately lead to some outcome, primarily profit, fail. Because there's nothing driving it. So it's got to be part of your strategic approach to making a buck for the majority of people. Now, I worked with an American firm for 28 years, and we always saw it as a way that was measured in our strategic plan. We were given 3 or 4 objectives, typically in a year, and then it was up to us as operational guys to achieve the goal of either reducing cost, increasing throughput, whatever it was. But there was clearly measured. We were held accountable for it. So lean wasn't this thing that we did over here, we're doing lean. Lean was the way of life. It was like the way we spoke about things. So it was very much integrated into what we did on a daily basis, how we approached, how we talked about things. So I put it out there, and I asked people, so what are our strategic goals? What are we trying to achieve? Are we trying to reduce cost? Are we trying to increase throughput? If we aren't talking about these things and how are we going to do it and who's responsible and when are we going to do it and how much, if that's not held, if that's not clear, you're not likely to achieve it. But like I said, that's true of pretty much every initiative. So the previous speaker was talking about sustainability from a point of view of having a clear metric, that there's a clear objective that what you're trying to achieve. Well, the big difference too about it is currently there is no compliance to say you have to be lean apart from going broke. Okay? He's talking about compliance. You have to meet a regulatory compliance. So that is going to motivate you to do it. So, leadership, clear objective. And I always say to people, if you don't know where you're going, any road will get you there. So if it's not clear what we're trying to achieve, you can do a whole range of things, but you're going to end up someplace, just whether it's the right place. So pitfall number 3 then is a simple way to identify what are our objectives that we're trying to achieve, and this should be down on the shop floor at a high level, and what are we doing to get there? So one of the things, actually Frank's not here, but for those people fortunate enough to ever go into like a Toyota operation, the one thing that stood out to you straight away was that when you walked in there, there was a clear picture of what these people were trying to do in that department, all the way from Toyota in Japan, all the way to the guys on the shop floor. It was very simple, logical flow. These are our corporate goals. This is our local operational goals. This is our department goals. This is what we're trying to achieve. And that translated then into, day-to-day things, day-to-day actions to achieve that objective. And I've seen, in my experience, where it is crystal clear what we're trying to achieve. There could be we're trying to increase throughput. We want to get more units out per day, or we want to reduce cost, or we want to reduce rework. We want to be on time delivery. Where those metrics are really simple and clear to understand, then you get alignment. People start going, oh, I get that. And I always say to people, it's a bit like you're playing a sport, and there's no scoreboard. So you're just playing the sport, hoping, are we winning? I don't know. There's no scoreboard. It's a simple kind of, so if you think about those clear ways, a simple way to identify this is an opportunity, this is how I'm going to work. And that allows then people to have a simple conversation. So how did we go yesterday, guys? Oh, we did this. Okay, so what do we got to do to get better? What went wrong? Oh, I couldn't find this tool. Right, so what are we going to do about it? Oh, we're going to do 5S or whatever. We're going to do something that we know is going to relate directly to that metric. So it goes back to the old Deming's or Shewhart of plan, do, check, act. So people don't understand that necessarily. They hear it, but planning is the key. Being clear about what is our objective, what we're looking to do, and then having then the countermeasures of what you want to do before you do the do. So I'll come back to that in a second in a moment. So pitfall number 4. Quite often I see people do this and they suddenly go, wow, we're going to go do all this great stuff. They're all fired up. And then they just run out of puff. They haven't really thought about how is this going, how much time do I need to devote? Do I have the resources? Do I have the people? So it's really common that people get really fired up in the beginning and 2 or 3 months later, other priorities have taken over that demand the resources. So you suddenly go, oh, that guy's not available anymore. He's busy doing this or whatever. So my advice to clients there was always to go, let's think about what we really can achieve. I'd much rather have a smaller successful project than a failed big one. Pitfall number 5. This is not so bad as it used to be, but going back a few years ago, the government was putting a lot of money into training. So you can go out and you can go, if you're a full-time employee, you can go and get a traineeship. And so RTOs are out there going and offering training, and companies go, that sounds like a really good idea. We can get money to train people. So we had a lot of money spent, quite often for very poor outcomes. So, and I'll be honest, I worked with some RTOs and I set up my own RTO, but I really would frustrate the hell out of me because I would ask them, why are we doing this training? Oh, well, they're going to get a certificate. And I go, huh? That's not the point of doing this. This is about getting the guys down on the shop floor and making a difference to their day-to-day work. So the big thing I used to see is 2 things. And again, goes back to leadership. So the leadership don't really have the knowledge and skills. They don't really understand what they're doing. They sounds like a great idea, but they don't really have that kind of knowledge and skills. And like I said, the worst thing is then you go and train all your people in all these things and improvement and stuff like that, and then they don't do it. So I have worked with companies where they spent a whole bunch of money on training and did not implement. And all that did was frustrate the hell out of everybody because the guys on the shop floor knew that they could improve. They knew they had the tools. Management didn't lead them. Didn't allow them in one case. Didn't allow them actually to implement. So the last one then is one thing that a lot of people don't think about is what are we talking about? We're talking about change. So I've been into a lot of places and one of my very first clients as a consultant was to say I was not welcome is probably an understatement. And the reason being is these guys had 5 CEOs in 5 years. And every CEO had come in with a new plan of what they're going to do. So when I came in and I started talking, you could see the guys rolling their eyes back in their head and go, and I literally was told, mate, we're not even bothering. We know you're going to be gone in 3 months. I went, really? Yep, mate, we've seen it all before. So one of the things we never really took into account of going in there was like, you've got to prepare the field, so to speak, to prepare the audience of what you're going to do, because you're asking people to change. And what do we know about change? Generally, people aren't all that usually enthusiastic about change, because quite often their experience has been negative. So there's a great video or great book if you want to look at managing change called My Iceberg is Melting. I don't know if anybody's seen that. It was pirated on YouTube. Really good video. It's a little about penguins on their iceberg. But there's a really good lot of takeaway points about if I'm looking to improve an area, if I'm looking to change, you really need to think about the people aspect, about having the approach. So how do we avoid these pitfalls? And I think the easiest answer is you've got to think about it before you start. So management's got to have a clear picture of what are you trying to achieve? You know, what are our clear objectives that we are going to achieve? And I'll use an example of this. So I was engaged by a company in Sydney. The previous general manager was moved on, and a new GM came in, who happened to be a guy I went to uni with, but he was an ex-Boral guy, so he understood lean, he'd been trained in or whatever. But at the beginning of when he brought me in, we spent hours talking about these issues. So before I got down and talking to guys, there was a real clear mental picture of where we want to be. And that way, when I was talking to guys on the shop floor and say, who are you and what are you going to do? I said, we're going to double output out of this factory within 12 months without new equipment. And they go, what? I go, that's what we're going to do. Is it clear? This is what we're going to do. And how we're going to do that is I'm going to help you guys stop making dumb mistakes. This company had 40% rework, okay? 40% rework. So all I had to do was stop doing the dumb mistakes and we doubled output. Now, it took us a little while to go through, but the things was all those pitfalls there, we addressed before we started. Because, why? We'd experienced failures in other places. So we really went and we talked about what are our objectives, how we're going to communicate with people, how we're going to, deal with people who push back. Fortunately, in that case, and this is again going back to the training issue, the guys on the shop floor had all done Cert 3 and Cert 4 in competitive systems and practices, the standard program, had never implemented. So in some respects, they're a fertile field for someone, me, come along to go, and Brad, as the general manager, say, guess what? You know all that crap you guys learned? We're going to do it, but what we're going to do is we're going to achieve the goal of 100% increase in output. And our DIFOD, our on-time delivery, we're going to talk about that every day. So the management team is going to come down into the factory and we're going to stand there in the middle of the factory and we're going to talk about our key metrics, one being on-time delivery. And to even demonstrate the thing about change, Brad likes his nice clothes, nice cars or whatever, and said, guess what we're going to do tomorrow, Brad? We're going to go and clean machines. So he and I came down and we spent all afternoon cleaning machines. And again, it was to drive the whole idea is going, hey, if it's good enough for the GM to come down and get dirty and clean the machine, we want to demonstrate we're serious about what we're going to do. We're going to be serious about change. Plan, do, check, act. The first bit, really think about it. But not wanting to sound negative, but I've been involved with some projects where we have achieved where you address these issues, you can get bloody amazing results. So like I said, company at the top, I just mentioned, we doubled output in less than 12 months. Give you an idea of how much impact we had. This company is it's a privately owned company based out of the UK. I met the owner, he came out and he said, Frank, can I have a word? I went, yep, sure. He said, come this way. And he said, I've got to thank you for the work you've done and everything. I said, well, look, thanks very much, but really it was your team. They're the guys that did it. He said, but I've got to be honest with you. And I said, what's that? He said, we seriously thought Brad was cooking the books. So he'd put all the financial reports and we kept going every month, better, better, better. So they went from being the worst financial performer in the group to the best performance in the group in 12 months. He said, I've never seen it before. I've never seen a company turn around. So another example, again, applying really basic tools, but changing the culture, the way they think about things. This company in Sydney, they manufacture truck components. We're able just to work with the guys, and I mean work with the guys, talking to the guys on the shop floor. What are you doing? What's stopping? We took it from cycle time from 4 weeks down to 4 days, turned the truck around. And again, was there any kind of like amazing technology? No. We just made sure the parts were ready to go on the truck. You know, don't bring a bloody truck in here unless everything is ready. Really simple kind of philosophy, but their philosophy before was to start and stop jobs. So they'd have half bloody finished trucks all over the place. These guys in Sydney too, simple kind of thing. They couldn't get above 7 units a day. We got them to 10. Now they do 17. No additional capital. Just thinking, getting the guys together and thinking about what are you doing? Why are you walking over there? Why are you doing this? Real basic, dumb questions, but we got them conscious of that. And my old company, where I learned all this stuff, probably one of our best, we took product cycles time down from 28 to 8 days and reduced our working capital massively. All about just thinking. No additional capital, just thinking. Changing the way of things. So, how am I going for time?
You're about spot on, I'd say.
Oh, good. So, as Alex mentioned, I'm a consultant to work with TXM. The guys got a booth out there, and I'm based on the Central Coast, so I also have my own kind of business. But you know, I do see a lot of companies go down this path, and they haven't really thought it through at the beginning. And like I said, I can only go, well, look, you know, I'm getting old now. I've been in manufacturing since I was 18 years old. I always say, like, the Yanks, I think, put a chip in the back of my neck and we got programmed to think this way. But it was just the fact, I was trained in that culture, so I didn't know anything different. I was trained to clean machines. The first 6 months of my career, I cleaned machines. I thought, this is the crappiest company in the world to work for, but it was to train you to understand where the value for the business came from. Wasn't being some sitting in the office manager, you know, thinking how good you were. It was to train you in the culture of how to be good. So, hopefully there's nothing new here you don't already know, but it's just a point that I always believe you've got to have this discussion at the beginning of any new client engagement, because I really kind of get a bit angry when people fail. Maybe I'm just getting old, but you know, I see companies that are successful and thinking, why can't you do the same thing? And it's all because of us.